You're listening to a Time Machine podcast. Old Movie Time Machine. An adventure through time and or space. Welcome back to Old Movie Time Machine.
Woohoo!
It's summer vacation. We're on sabbatical. We've
been watching the movies.
Yeah, that's the thing is we've been kind of getting back in touch with. Well, we're also at the airport. Please enjoy these. That's a prop plane. It sounds like. But we've also been getting in touch with our current times. We spent so much time in the goddamn 40s, 50s, and 60s that we have to check in with our own culture, the culture that our people. We have to gaze into the mirror of art from our world. So that's what we've been doing. Now, we've been talking new movies. So the biggest one that we saw recently would be Oppenheimer. Like everybody's talking about the Barbenheimer combo that you must do. The only person in this virtual room we are in now who's completed it that I am aware of is Shrishma Naik. So congratulations to you.
I gave in to peer pressure.
Yep. You fell for the marketing ploy.
I did.
It worked successfully. But we were talking about this earlier. It was a good ploy, right? Like
it was a great ploy. And I mean, I wonder intentional versus it just kind of happened, but it worked out. Really
yes.
Well. Yes.
So you're talking about Barbie being intentional? I think it's supposed to be.
The fact that they both like the marketing campaigns around both of these movies being released around the same time.
Who made them?
That's
what
a good
studios?
question.
Oppenheimer was Universal, I think, and I don't know what Barbie was.
I think Barbie was Warner Brothers.
Yeah, probably. So like different studios, but I think it just became clear when they were releasing to total different market segments in the same weekend that this would be good for everybody. Like people were talking about it anyway, and they just kind of took advantage of it. So
it helps that it was also a bunch of really attractive people like Cillian Murphy.
Oh my God. Hey.
You're talking. Oh yeah.
And Margot Robbie.
Also hey.
Florence Pugh. Hello.
Also hey.
So we run the gamut here. If I haven't seen
and
either
Blunt
one.
too. Emily Blunt. Yeah, so Carolyn, you're Barbenheimer free at this point, but you don't mind if we talk a little bit about it, right?
No, I mean, I've certainly seen enough news and I've already formed an opinion of most likely enjoying both as long as I can be at home in my jammies to do so.
Also, just to catch you up, I don't know if you're aware, spoiler alert, they did build the bomb and it did work. So just know that.
I heard some pretty big, impact.
Yeah, among the biggest. So spoilers, all the time moving forward, listeners. So we'll shout out the names of what we're talking about, and then you will have to decide if you want to fast forward. Don't turn it off. Just fast forward to the next bit. So Shrishma, let's talk Barbie first of all. Let's just get it out there.
Right.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, plastic or otherwise. How do you want to tell us about Barbie? What would you tell us? We're asking you.
I mean, I like Barbie. I would give it 1 thumbs up.
Out of 2 thumbs up.
Because we have 2.
My fault.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Only because it was a good movie. It was unexpectedly better than I expected it to be.
Uh-huh.
But I felt it was so on the nose. And feminism is not even the right word. It was very just on the nose, like messaging to women. Which I get.
What's the message?
Follow your own path. You don't need to be tied down by, the stereotypes and the limitations that society puts on women.
Is this represented?
Break through the barriers and, find yourself kind of situation.
The limitations, is it represented as a symbol by their inability to move their bodies, that kind of thing?
I mean, it's basically like there's Barbie Land and then there's the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Barbie Land, they believe that they've created a good life for women in the real world because they've broken all the stereotypes that, women should do or can be.
Okay.
But then she goes into reality and realizes, it's not really true. Women aren't as free as they were like they had in their mind, and then she's it's kind of it's kind of dumb now that I'm explaining it. So like they're linked to like the Barbies in Barbie Land are linked to their owners in the real world. So the owner was having like some bad thoughts, so she started imbibing those feelings that her owner was having in the real world.
Interesting. So there's like a Toy Story aspect to it too. Okay.
Yes. But the whole thing with like Barbie, like for me personally, like Barbie never held the space of a symbol of, you know, being free and living your dream and like, oh, I saw Dr. Barbie, so I wanted to be a doctor. Like Barbie was a toy and I used to pull her head off and draw on her.
I'm right there with you, Shrishma. I did not. Barbies were not my thing, even though Grandma Zeppa desperately tried to get me interested in them, and I refused to play with them.
Yeah,
like they weren't around. I don't remember them being around when we were growing up.
That's because I didn't have any.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it just wasn't a part of. So I don't know, Carolyn. Did you have any interest when you heard that? Like, oh, they're making the Barbie movie. Were you like, finally? Catherine, same for you. Were you like, finally? Catherine, you love a good Barbie, right? You have Barbies in the UK?
Yeah, but I didn't ever have one or several. It was just not a thing. I was not interested. I was more of a tomboy and interested in climbing trees than anything else. So I didn't really fit into that target audience.
I mean, the three of us are probably not a good representation of those
impacted most by it. But what kind of like bugged me about the whole movie, like they're trying to say, you know, that there's this element of, you know, the world is just a capitalist society that's driven by money and all of this stuff. Where in essence, that's exactly what, you know, in our reality that we live in, like the sales for Barbie would have like shot up. So it's all just one, you know, big marketing scheme for Mattel.
Right.
So it's very counterintuitive to the message that they were trying to send in the movie. And then they tried to make it seem like Margot Robbie wasn't good looking or something like that. Like, you know, as she was becoming humanized, she was losing her good looks, which like, okay, come on, guys.
Well, yeah, she's a monster. Right. So, so this raises a good point then, an issue to debate. If the product is preaching a good message, a healthy message, but is still behaving in an antithetical way to that message, is it still worthwhile? Like, what's the math on that? Is it better that it didn't exist at all? Or does it? Yeah. Okay. So it reached a lot of people. So it's connecting with an audience, clearly. If the audience leaves that very commercial experience with that message and takes something away from it, does that make it okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't read an awful lot about it, but there's like clickbait headlines around how Barbie is, women went to see it with their partners and then they're realizing that they're in a toxic relationship and they're breaking up and I don't know whether that really
that's really happening. There's a spate of that.
I've also read these messages, and that's the thing. I don't know if it's that good of a movie that will cause like fundamental change in the way or my outlook in life. The way people are portraying it to be, like groundbreaking and blah blah blah. It's just a fucking movie about a doll, which was semi-entertaining.
Summed it up in one right there. One-line reviews for Shrishma Naik. Fucking movie about a doll.
And I'm sure Mattel just, their sales have just skyrocketed.
Yeah, everybody's making a lot of money. I'm sure there will be a sequel. There's no doubt going to be a whole Barbie-verse
There's a whole Mattel-verse where they're going to come out, like all the different toys that they've made.
Oh my God. Really?
Okay. Yeah.
I would.
So just crunching the money-making machine, which is, I think the opposite of the message if you actually listen to the movie.
I will say, I think one of my favorite like reel or TikTok reviews that I saw, and I was kind of like, well, all right, let's get to the consumerism as we're talking about.
Right.
It was a woman that was saying, and I'm sorry, I'm not citing her because it was insightful, but she said, of course we're attacking a female-driven, female-directed movie that's going to generate sales like crazy for Mattel, but we don't attack Star Wars,
That's
Marvel, blah, 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 and went through and kind of named them all. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that right there.
But that's not the message that none of those movies are trying to sell the message that you shouldn't, anti-consumer message or this world is, we're also consumed with buying and, that's not the message in any of these other movies where that is one of the messages in Barbie. So
that's a fair point. I mean, it's not like Darth Maul shows up on screen and takes out that double-edged lightsaber and says, "This is cool, but it's not. Don't worry about it. You don't need one of these. Right. Don't be like me." Well, of course I want to be like you. That's awesome. What you have is awesome. Can I buy that? Yeah. Definitely. So that's interesting that they chose that route, I guess. I'm a little.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that was the main message. It was one of the messages, but yeah, I mean, if little girls watch the movie and they're empowered to, stand up for themselves, yeah, sure.
Do you feel like it's empowering? Do you feel like it would be effective?
I don't feel it was I just didn't see it as I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel empowered by watching this movie.
I just wonder about this issue of diluting powerful messages, say in this case, anti-consumerism or feminism, something like that. It's kind of watered down for the masses, right? It's an easy delivery of this message through beautiful people and jokes and everything. It's still doing something, right? I still the net effect is positive, right? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Just because it wasn't, I didn't feel it that way. Clearly there were people who did. And if that causes them to take positive steps in their life or brings a positive outlook to their life, then yeah, more power to you. Who am I to say no?
Virtual friends, any comment?
I mean, if someone wants to take something away from it and learn something and question a thing that they didn't think of before, just because it's not in some kind of high intellectual format, it doesn't make it any less valuable.
Grad school isn't for everyone, okay? So, I mean, I'm coming from I would say a rather glittery, sparkly background of dance. I will say when I started delving into a lot of crime theories related to crime, but a lot of theories where I'm just sort of let me investigate years of my life trying to look and act a certain way. Right. I mean, so I went through that process in grad school of essentially what this movie is asking
that's true
the viewer to do. And not just from a female perspective, but also for men to engage in that process. And, anyways, grad school's not for everyone. If they put this in a palatable format, more power to them.
Sure. That's true.
Yeah. Think about back 2000, I want to say 2010. Oh, MASH is happening, by the way. Chopper's coming in. Radar hears them. But, think back 13-ish years ago when the word feminism started being used in more of a pop culture kind of pop culture figures started embracing the idea of being a feminist. And just using the term, I think has transformed it and made it more comfortable usage of it and just more comfortable with the idea of gender equality, just by that, just exposure to the word and dissociating it from the previous association, which was always people burning their bras in the 70s, hippies talking, fighting the man and
and I think
singing folk songs.
Something like feminism can be as varied as oftentimes varied as women in
That's
the world.
True. Yeah,
sure.
It means different things to different people.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah.
I don't think there's a working solid definition in terms. I mean, I'm sure if I could go and Google it, and yes, we would find one, but then we could probably argue about it and say, well, that's not what it means to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And as a woman, can I invalidate some other woman's perception of it? No, not really. I mean, if that's their experience,
exactly.
But just the fact that it's the idea, the very concept of it is much more comfortably spoken of and embraced when we start analyzing situations through different viewpoints and things like that. Okay, Barbie. Any final comments?
Ryan Gosling was hot.
Okay.
He was enough.
He was Kenough. Oh, Kenough.
I don't know if you saw the T-shirt.
No, but I get it. It's good.
You get it?
Yeah, it's all right. I saw the trailer 3 times because I saw Indy twice, and it was before Mission Impossible 2.
Okay.
So I feel like I've seen the movie in a sense. Like,
Will Ferrell is in it.
Yes, I know. He's in the trailer. Her being Barbie is in the trailer. Her having issues being Barbie and questioning herself is in the trailer. Then her going to the real world and Ken joining is in the trailer. And then her running through the offices of Mattel where Will Ferrell shakes his fist. It's all in the, like, I feel like.
So like Ken goes to the real world and so in the Barbie land, they think that, kind of like the way they portrayed, like women had the upper hand in the Barbie land.
Okay.
And the men were kind of accessories to the women.
Sure. Trophy pieces.
Right. So then Ken goes into the real life and realizes it's a man's world.
Okay.
And so he brings those ideas back to Barbie land. And then that's where like the
he corrupts Barbie land. Oh.
And then that's
it's
where
not going to fly.
Right.
Okay. Well, again, grad school is not for everybody. If this helps change a man's view on patriarchy versus matriarchy and such things, then great. Thumbs up,
right?
I suppose. This is always the issue. It's our issue. It's the man's issue. Like we're the ones who need to redefine how we look at ourselves, like what masculinity is relative to femininity and all this. Like that's on us. I don't know. I was just talking with somebody about how to do this.
Stop trying to legislate our bodies.
Well, that's for sure.
Stop it.
Okay, we'll work on that.
I'm not legislating your penises.
Don't,
because if I did, y'all would have mandatory.
People would have.
What do you call those operations at 18?
Vasectomies?
Or 16.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that would be sterilization, and that would also be like Nazi Germany.
No, but that's reversible. So they can like have it reversed, like when they're 25, 26.
Oh, well, I think it should, by the way, start earlier than 18.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe like 15 years.
Can't we just...
Can't someone come up with a pill?
I was just going to say, Carolyn, the pill
Come
form.
on.
Pill form.
I think there was one.
They do that, but like there was also like, would you really trust a man to remember to take it? I mean, the consequences do not lie with him.
No, but also I would say we, like, as a woman, it's my responsibility. I also don't expect any man to believe me that I'm taking it.
When you say you're taking.
So I would say you use as many kinds of contraception as you need to use to feel comfortable to engage in this moment.
Right. Fair. That's a fair.
Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I forget how we got here, but
I'm just saying, don't stop legislating women's bodies and the things, because we're not going to legislate your penises. But I totally would love it if there was an option for like the pill for guys. So that, like, there's plenty of guys out there that are like, I don't want to make a baby. I just want to get on.
For sure.
They might remember to take it if it's related to sex.
Yeah, it's possible. It's quite possible. I don't know. I mean,
come on, science.
Yeah, let's get it together. And come on, guys, let's get behind this too, because classic guys
asking
like
for it.
Oh, as soon as the idea you're gonna mess with my stuff, like that's a no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I might have, there might be side effects. This might affect my behavior day to day, my mental state, and might increase like cancer risks.
I might get blood clots.
These things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean all the things.
That would be terrible if it ended up doing anything like that. Oh my God.
It'd be horrible.
Yeah, we're a bunch of crybabies.
You are.
And babies.
Things.
Yeah. But that being said, I think it is a compelling argument that if it means getting more of some, then that might be a powerful motivating device for guys to get behind this. So
if that's how we got to sell it, with the side effects of, performance enhancement drug, that little blue pill.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about men in general.
Yeah. I think if you're good with saying like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to mess with it that way, why not mess with it
that way? You should also be willing to say, wow. And women
combine both.
I mean, the campaign for that would be like, I think it's really hot that your sperm aren't infecting my body.
Infecting. My God.
Infiltrating.
Yeah, right.
Infiltrates.
I don't want to make babies with you, but I do want to get it on with you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Which is what, I think like 75% of the time, that's the state of mind.
Right.
And then,
I would say more than that,
more than
Carolyn, we know you're special.
100% of the time. 100% of the time, I do not want to make babies.
Guys, let's move on from legislating our bodies and let's start legislating the atom. Let's get into Oppenheimer. Carolyn, again, you've not seen this.
I'm going to have thoughts about it, though.
Do you have any that you want to start off with before we talk about what actually happened?
I love Cillian Murphy's RBF.
RBF. What does that stand for?
Wrist in bitch face.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
There's like so many memes out there of him being judgy, and I love him for it. And I don't know if I'm sure he must be aware of how his face looks, but I've been a fan of his since like early days.
Well, and you were a big Peaky Blinders person too as well?
Oh, yeah,
right?
for sure. But I mean, I liked him back. What was the zombie movie he did?
28 Days Later.
28 Days Later, right.
Yeah.
I liked him in that. And that was, I think, like pre-Batman. And
oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but I've been like, yeah, he's a good actor. I like him as an actor. Yes, he's attractive, but I like, he's good.
I think I'm a little late to the Cillian Murphy party. I did not realize he was quite as good looking as he is. And since we went to watch it, I've been looking at a lot of memes and videos of this man.
Are you entranced by his face?
I am very, yes.
It's a fascinating face. It is
very.
It's almost a little feminine.
It is.
Oh,
like he would make a really hot woman as well. Like
he's a pretty man, would you say?
Yes, but he's also not like. There's also like
there's an oddness to it though, like an alien quality or some kind of.
It's the cheekbones.
Yeah, and the
high cheekbones, full lips, big
eyes,
clear big eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's an interesting face.
But I think some faces that we really like have that they could they could go either way depending on how the hairstyle is. I mean, even like a young Johnny Depp.
Oh, you feel like young Johnny Depp's face could go a couple different ways?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually,
like young Depp, you think he could be like, that's an attractive man. Right? Like,
yeah, I mean,
universally.
He's hot, but I'm thinking like, okay, when my hair was short for a decade and I literally had it everything from a mohawk to a high and tight, like Peaky Blinders to like, I have a jarhead Marine haircut, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I would say that I loved the fact, and one of the reasons why I cut my hair off was to just have men like make them question what their idea of beauty was. Because I had one too many men say, "Never cut your hair. Your hair's beautiful." In my 20s, and I was like, "Oh yeah, watch me shave it.
Right.
Watch me GI Jane this shit.
Stop legislating my hair." That's what you were
seriously.
saying.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Oppenheimer.
Okay. It's important we talk about Cillian Murphy's face, though. I think it is an important fact because he is in almost every frame of this movie.
Yes.
This movie is 3 hours long.
Yes.
I will say for me, it didn't feel like 3 hours. I don't know about Katherine Sherlock. We all saw it this past weekend. That means nothing to the listener, but we saw it recently within the last 5 to 6 days.
1 week ago from this recording.
Exactly. Thank you. How was the time aspect for you guys?
Yeah, it didn't feel like 3 hours. I wasn't aware that it was 3 hours at all until you said that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Same.
Okay. But I
So who else is in it? Okay, so Robert Downey.
So yes, Emily Blunt is
Emily Blunt plays his wife Kitty.
Josh
Rami
Hartnett.
Malek.
Yep.
Robert Downey Jr.
Jack Quaid related to Dennis Quaid?
Probably. What's his face? Alden.
Oh my God, he has to be. They look exactly the fucking same. Yes.
Sure, so
he is the son of Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Totally. You can totally.
Now you can see it right? When you
I mean, I definitely see Dennis Quaid, but now that it's, okay, I see it.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a large movie. It is. I wasn't sure how to feel about it leaving it. I had to do some processing and everything, and also I've been reading the book. What?
Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid's son is in his 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, think about it. Like,
no, time is a liar. I know.
20
I'm
years
sorry. I
ago
thought the
was
70s was
2003.
30 years ago. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in my 6th decade. People.
Oh my God. Yeah. We can't start thinking like that, guys. It's too much. It's way too much.
Like I'm at the end of my 30s. He's at the beginning of his 30s, and that's still weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's weird,
sorry.
for sure.
Time.
So epic Christopher Nolan cast, a very large and unwieldy story. I've been reading the book that this is based off of, American Prometheus. It's one of these. It's a doorstop, right? So it does a really good job, though. In hindsight, as I'm thinking about it, like it ticks all the boxes of the story, like the big moments that you want to see. Him and Einstein, him and Truman, the blood on my hands, get this guy out of here. The Trinity test, everything leading up to Trinity. It's a lot of material to cover. It's really dense material. I definitely want to see it again, at least a couple of times, just because it was flying by. And I know this stuff fairly well, and it was still cruising by at such a pace where, like, if you missed that one line explaining the marbles in the different cups and what they represent, like, you're going to be totally lost.
Doing?
Like,
right.
what does this mean? Why? But they did it. He did it. I don't know. He somehow lands it. Yeah.
So I have, since you know more about this time period, and I have not read that book, and I fully admit that once we get into like World War II, sometimes I tune out in history.
Step right this way. I'll tell you all about it.
Like yes and no. Do you know what I mean? Like yes and no. Like, I mean, I know some temple things. I get.
I'm sure you
like who was involved in the development on this project. At the same time, I'm like, I don't know the inner workings of that project because I haven't looked at that specifically. So, I mean, he's tasked with making the atom bomb.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the reasons probably that you're not so into it is just, it's so many people. I mean, it really is hundreds and hundreds of different people from all around the world coming together, everybody adding their bit.
Exceptionally smart people.
Definitely. Yeah.
But they're let's kill people. Smart people.
Well.
Yes and no. Wait, no, I see Catherine's face too.
Yes and no. Okay. So as soon as they do illustrate this fairly well in the film, I think, as soon as they split the atom, people who understand this realm of physics, the quantum realm of physics, understand the potential, the lethal potential for the energy that is released upon fission. And so they automatically understand that, especially with the world the way it was at that point, arming up everywhere, that this is going to be it's going to be weaponized. Like there's no way it's not going to be.
Exactly. I mean, there was the race to get it ready for to beat the Germans, effectively.
Yes.
Which,
and the Germans were leading the way.
The war ended.
Yes.
Well, Germany capitulated, but the Japanese were still
going.
Yes.
Fighting.
And so many of the key physicists who were working on this material were Germans. Many of them were German Jews as well. So it was a real race. Like just the idea, people who understood the potential, understood that like we're not the only ones thinking about this. They're thinking about it, and Germany is all about.
There was a real urgency.
The world.
Real urgency
like
for it. Yeah, totally. And this might be a dumb question, but this is a World War II question. Do they even touch on this? Like, could the war have been resolved without?
Yes.
This is the controversial conversation.
Because
seeing that Germany had already
kind of like were out.
Hadn't Hitler like killed himself?
Done. And they even mentioned it in the movie where like the fighting even in Japan was coming to an end. Like they weren't, I don't think they and this is why I didn't like the movie, because I felt like they're glorifying this act of creating destruction, right? And whether you on whichever side of that, like side of the war, like people were dying, like at the end of the day, innocent people died in Japan as well. Like, and then to sit here in this time and age and to glorify, and you can say it was not glorifying because they showed like his moral fight with what he did, but it is glorifying the man who created an atom bomb which killed millions of people. And I don't think we should be doing that.
That's a fair point. What was the glory, I guess, would be my question. Like, what was
the fact that we're talking about him now, right? Now his name is, we're talking about this man there's some people who, think what he did was great. It needed to be done. But like, why was there a need to make the movie?
Okay. So I think to have these kinds of discussions, I think that's a big part of it, because this is an ongoing historical discussion. I don't think there is necessarily right, wrong answer here. I totally understand exactly what you're saying. Many people would agree with you. Mm-hmm. I think, had you ever heard of J. Robert Oppenheimer before all this stuff?
No.
So, okay. So it's kind of like bringing this figure out and examining him. I didn't find it. Actually, that's not true, because I was complaining during the break about how the whole time, this is my gripe with the movie, they're just doing this like elevating the white man protagonist of this thing of like, you're just so special, Robert. You can do whatever you want to do. Robert, I don't see the world the same way that you do. Don't you get it? You're special. You're here for a reason. You're supposed to do special things. How fucking special this guy is, right? The reality is, I don't know that he was as exceptional, maybe, as that would lead you to believe. We talked about this a bit at the time as well, but like his work on black holes is becoming more and more relevant to contemporary science. So that's something. But otherwise, he didn't have like the general or special relativity theories, that kind of thing. It wasn't the same type of thinking as Einstein.
Right.
He was more involved in quantum physics. That's pretty progressive, especially for the time. That's really where him and Einstein kind of parted ways. But he was more, I guess the reason we focus on him is because he coordinates all these minds. He's able to sort of take all these different ideas and personalities and synthesize them into this project.
So he's a good manager.
Successful. But yeah, basically.
But to be that he has vision, I think that's the thing. Nobody else quite has the overview of
is there any analysis of this film from like a leadership standpoint, like visionary leader, like etc.? Like
it's only a matter of time.
Yeah,
I think.
Sure,
I'm doing it right now
because it is a lot of there is definitely a couple of montages of him like standing in the desert pointing like, put that over there and we'll do it over like this and hire that person. So that's a part of it.
But he didn't drive it to be geographically where it was. His passions were always being in the desert and physics, and he managed to make those two things collide
together.
Quite literally collide in the desert. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of, he had a lot of sway for whatever reason. He was clearly respected in his own time. And I think it kind of started, as most things do, it's just an exploration of the science. It's like, how far can we push this? Is this possible? Is this feasible? And then there was the realization of, well, this is basically a massive bomb. Mm-hmm. And then it was almost like it becomes like, well, can we do that? It's not like should we? It's like, how is that feasible? That we're inventing technologies doesn't exist. Like the science doesn't exist to do this when they first start out. So they build all of that. So that is a massive achievement.
So one of the things in science in general, and I mean, I deal with the human research side of things, but I deal with like a lot of the technology side of how that affects policing. But, so like the body worn cameras and tasers is like, okay, but science in general, whatever branch you're on, I just always, like, the older I get, the more I keep coming back to the Jurassic Park quote. Ian Malcolm sitting there and while they're having their fancy lunch at Jurassic Park. And I realized, like, what is he supposed to be, a KI-tician or whatever he is? He's really an ethicist. because he's saying, your scientists are so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should. And that's can be applied to every science, technology, et cetera, that comes out. Like, are we stopping and thinking about in the race of like, can we make this happen? Are we stopping and saying, but should we make this happen?
Yeah. But I don't know, had the, the geopolitical kind of, climate not changed, whether this would have had the go ahead, because it was so unfeasible. The science didn't exist. It was going to be massively expensive. But, there were theories that then, were tantalizing in, well, if we had something like this, we could end the war, and then it then got sanctioned because of that, I feel.
Right. Certainly. Yeah. I mean, as with many things are the result of that kind of the arsenal of democracy and all that, and building up these huge manufacturing capabilities and trying to solve wartime problems and then applying that later to civilian matters.
Yeah. I mean, what was yes, I guess. But what was interesting to me, the second half of the movie, or the last quarter of the movie, was then dedicated to how they needed to stop getting this into the hands of the Russians.
Yes.
And so like they triggered their own arms race, essentially.
Yeah, which I think was something he anticipated, actually. He was an advocate for transparency and openness with their allies, and Russia was an ally at the time. And the fact that they were not open then elicited the Cold War, effectively. So he did predict that.
Well, and also his message, like this was his recommendation post-bomb, was, hey, President, you should be talking to Russia. You should let them know that we have this weapon. Tell them about it. Like like you say, like the more transparency we have around this thing, the more we can control it and decide to regulate it. And so Truman throws him under the bus, though. He does nothing. So they go to this Potsdam conference, which is the key moment where he's with Stalin and Churchill, and while they're testing Trinity, and he gets the green light that it works. That Oppenheimer checks in with him, is like, you talked to him about the bomb, right? You talked to Stalin you told him about all like what we're working on and the big deal it is. And he's like, oh yeah, definitely. But he never did. Yeah. He just sort of alludes to it. And Stalin knew anyway, because he had two people in the Los Alamos anyway reporting back on what they were doing. So it was going to happen. I want to return to what you brought up, Shrishma, because it's the key conversation, and there's no resolving it, I don't think, but like I think it's important that we have the discussion, because especially as I'm an American, Carolyn's an American, Catherine is English, you are whatever you define yourself, Indian. Well, right, but you grew up, like culturally, right. So ambiguous. Just as like somebody without a stake historically in this conversation. Like, you feel like no bomb.
Yeah, I feel like no bomb. Like, one of the things that I watched this movie and I thought about, and I think I read somewhere, I don't remember, but like there's people in Japan today who would have lost people in that bombing. And imagine how they feel watching, like, to even know that this movie was made.
Do you feel like this movie was disrespectful to those people?
Yes, absolutely.
Because of the glorification of this guy? Okay.
Yeah. How many films do we have about Nazi Germany, and how many films do we have about Japan?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I'm just, because I've watched this movie, like, I understand, like, there's so many, like, even if you watch any of the James Bond movie and the way they, like, the villain that they characterize at any given time is always, some external force. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. This one really, like, it kind of moved me to think, like, there's literally, like, there's people who died, and I don't know the intricacies of what was happening with Japan at that time. I just know that outside of anyone who was involved with the war, there were innocent people who did lose their lives. And for them to watch this movie out there about the guy who invented or so-called, brought to fruition this bomb that actually caused the death. Like, it seems like a lot to process.
Yeah, it's a loss of people who were alive. And then the devastating part of thinking about, well, who have we also lost that was never even created because the people that they would have grown into. I mean, how many civilians were involved or killed? Not involved, that they have no choice in this. They're not,
Mm-hmm.
But like, what are the numbers on that for Japan?
Yeah.
As far as numbers of people directly impacted by losses from the bomb? Oh, okay.
Right. I mean, we're talking, we've spent, some of us have spent time with this material, but I can't quote you that. That's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's radio, like it's not just the bomb, like there's after effects of like the radioactivity that would have impacted quality of life for years to come in that region.
Yeah, definitely.
The bombings killed between 129,000 and 226 people, 226,000 people, most of whom were civilians and remain the only use of nuclear weapons in armed conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a city. I mean, there were two cities, obviously, but
right. Oh, and that's probably just very closely related. Like you say, there's probably much more spread out. I mean,
then if you take the toll of the broader implications of that in terms of future generations in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what would those places have been like population wise now if that hadn't occurred?
Mm-hmm. So I think we also need to contextualize. I mean, we're looking at this through very clear-eyed. I get what you're saying, and I'm with you to a certain degree. I guess the thing is, like, we have to put ourselves back in the shoes of those people back then, living in that war. You're going into, year 5 of this war, and all of your relatives are dying abroad. And it looks to be, so the stats on the Japan invasion, the Operation Downfall or Olympic, whichever you prefer to use, they had kind of estimated that it was going to definitely go through most of 46, I think probably into 47, would have cost 1 million American lives. So a life is a life, regardless. I understand that. As an American, though, it's like, obviously, this is our narrative is that we want to preserve American lives.
Right.
In a war that we did not start. And Japan had been very
in a war.
resistant.
We were also isolationists for a very long time before entering.
Mm-hmm, for sure. The Pacific campaign of taking back the islands was a nightmare. So many people died, both sides. So the idea of like full Japanese mainland invasion, they had estimated the Japanese army to be at about 1 million people. And that was the timeline for 46, 47. In reality, as we've later found out, they had 3 million soldiers there. So it just would have been awful for both sides all around for several more years to come. I'm not saying that justifies the decision, but it's part of the facts that play into such a decision of like, well, we can drag this out and we can kill a whole bunch of people over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, or we can kill a whole bunch of people and wrap this up by the end of the week. I don't know. That's the moral question, right? Like that's the debate.
I'm not arguing with, and I'm not even arguing, but like I hear you on all of that, and I'm not trying to pass judgment on the decisions made then in World War II. I'm thinking more from like the perspective of Hollywood today.
Yes, that's the thing.
And I guess I would say like Hollywood in general has focused very much on World War II historically because they were used for propaganda. Mm-hmm. We have before World War II already had many Jewish communities that then also had ties to Europe. We also, if I'm not mistaken, we're not really taking any refugees initially from those populations, but I feel like we have a lot of different media viewpoints on the European side of World War II. Obviously, we're a Eurocentric country in the United States. What we don't necessarily have, and this is kind of I would say like a failing of Hollywood, where it's like, okay, we're doing Oppenheimer. Yes, these are fascinating people. They're brilliant people. Not questioning the decisions that were made then, or to end this war as quickly as possible. I'm more like, so Hollywood, when are we gonna get like the
Marie Curie or something like that?
Yeah, when are we gonna get the Japanese side of this?
Oh, gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say there is a Marie Curie film, I believe.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, has this subject? There's never been an Oppenheimer film before. Is that correct? There hasn't been one that touches this subject.
Not in the same way.
Because of the issues. I mean, I feel like this is a very important piece of history.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is worth remembering.
That's why I'm saying, like, I'm not saying it shouldn't be
glorifying anything particularly, other than I don't know. It's just because it does leave you with more questions. It's not like it's wrapping it up in a nice bow. It's not like a happy ending or anything. It's not saying, "Yay, America, we did it!" Woo, like the rest of the world.
And ultimately,
it's a complex
I don't know.
Well, he's consumed with the regret. Like that's part of the reason why we would tell his story. You're not buying it. You don't. I mean, this is the arc of a human, though. So, like, this is the emotional arc. Is that?
Yeah, but we're doing it from a white male perspective again, and again.
It was a bunch of white males on the program. I mean, that's just a history thing. But it's the fact that he does this terrible thing, but then recognizes he does the terrible thing, and then is trying to, toothpaste back in the tube or control it or advocate. Again, like you say, Catherine, it's complicated. It's a complex issue to discuss ever, let alone with the actual people involved and the decisions they were making and why they were making them.
Right.
I
agree
get your point,
that it should.
I'm not saying we should jerk this guy off all day, but I mean,
I get both sides, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, I understand it is a part of history that we should talk about. And I'm like,
is it though? Like, do we need to talk about why he created, do we need to talk about him creating this bomb?
I think it's,
I think we do. I think precisely for this reason. Because
I was going to say it's generating this kind of conversation, which is important to recognize.
Harnessing the power of splitting the atom. I mean, that's like a huge thing for humanity.
Okay, maybe. I don't know.
You don't think so? Like understanding that the world is subatomic?
I mean, we have that of course we have that understanding, but do we need a movie about how he split that atom and then created a bomb out of it and what his thought process was behind that?
I want the Ken Burns documentary.
It happened. It's history.
And it's influential.
The subjects that are difficult.
Okay.
But nothing good came out of it. What good came out of it?
That's part of the discussion. Like, that's the good thing that came out of it was the war ends. But there's also a bunch of bad shit that comes with it.
For like nuclear power plants and things like that. The same technology then goes on and in theory gets harnessed for the benefit of humanity. I mean, I know that's also controversial.
I mean, nuclear power in itself is not something that's not. I know it's a strong source of energy, but it's not like the most stable source of energy.
It can be, though. I think actually it can be. It's just the problem is humans are involved.
Right. Yes. The humans are the unstable part of this equation.
Led to every,
but I feel like, in terms of energy, like you don't have to split the atom to get energy. Like there are various methods of getting energy that are just like, I don't know. I understand what you guys are saying and I get the significance of it. I get the science of why it's, having that understanding of what comes out of going into that level of, detail. I believe, the study of energy is, it has to be done, but it's just for me as, like, it just, I feel like we could have done without the movie. Like,
interesting. Okay.
No, it was.
I think I would
it's
prefer the Ken Burns documentary that might give me both this story and the story of other things in context.
Right. This is. It is. I was kind of surprised at first watching it unfold. This movie over its 3 hours, that the Trinity test happens very much like late middle.
Yeah.
Like I kind of in my mind, I had pictured this as sort of a Trinity movie, but it's a biopic. I mean, it's his story.
Yeah.
We're seeing this story told through his eyes. They're important eyes because he was coordinating everything and conceptualizing and synthesizing and everything. So I get what you're saying though, but I do think that the understanding of the atomic and subatomic world and quantum physics that's of the era, like that's stuff that we're still trying to figure out and will be such a huge thing to understand when we finally do have a better understanding of, we still don't really, but I think that is certainly worthy of telling the story of, I guess. Because otherwise, why would you tell any story? Like, why would they put out that Michael Keaton McDonald's movie about the guy who made McDonald's successful? Like, who gives a shit? Like, I'll go there for the burgers. Like, but the story of the vision and all that and how they did it makes it worthy. I don't know. But also, it's your opinion. Who gives a, like,
yeah,
who cares what we think?
That's just my perspective. Like, it was a good movie, I guess, for the most part. I just didn't really connect with
Listen, did you connect with Florence Pugh and her boobies reading from the Vedas while... Tell me your thoughts. It's a very controversial...
Controversial?
What's that? Controversial.
You said shul.
Oh,
controversial.
It's a very controversial sex scene.
It was controversial. I mean, it would... I get why people are upset. Like, there's, usually one wouldn't associate sex and the Bhagavad Gita.
So can you describe the scene as you feel comfortable?
She
set it up
basically I think she was writing him and she got the book and somehow it turned him on to see her reading from the book as she was writing him.
Sure.
And then I guess he might have finished as he said, I am becoming death or some shit like that.
Yeah. She demands that he read the original Sanskrit. And it's people are upset about it. There's
a very big Hindu nationalist movement in India that I could see how they get butthurt about the littlest things. This one is a really big thing.
Is this a holy text?
It is a holy text.
Okay, so it's
one of the.
I'm going to push some buttons.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It would be kind of like someone reading from the Bible as they're having sex.
Okay. Which just
I'm
seems
sure
like
people do that.
Yeah.
But
it's so not horny. It's so not the thing to do. Like what?
You don't know.
Well, that's true.
Going to do it.
Hey, I'm sure there's an audience. I know there's an audience for it. I'll guarantee it. Catherine, you were at this screening with us. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the film. I mean, to me, I think if I had to review it, I would just say it's intense. I mean, the whole thing is intense. The way the storytelling is laid out is intense. It's very immersive. The soundscape was very intense.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy, face, eyes, cheekbones, like there in the frame, a resting bitch face, intense. Yeah. It was the whole thing was a lot. And I think I'd like to see it again. I mean, I knew of him. I knew of some of the background. I didn't know a huge amount of detail. I mean, I don't know how much I can trust this to be as factually correct as possible. I mean, Hollywood is Hollywood. I've no doubt things were tweaked for dramatic purposes. I mean, and it's a film for entertainment, and it was a good story. and it was told well. And yeah, the visuals were great, the sounds were great. It was quite overwhelming. The concepts were overwhelming as well. So yeah, it was. But if you want to, I very much enjoyed it and would like to see it again, I think. And it would probably make me go away and look for something factual to kind of see how close was this. So, maybe I'll be borrowing that book from you. Like, if you ever finish it.
For sure.
I will call, it's my prediction, an award for Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah. Oh,
he was great. He was great. Slime ball. I mean, I did not know who this person was at all.
No, nor I. But he was just another
real
one of those
life,
50s white dude. We've seen him in all these movies, basically. Another one of those.
Yet another overambitious politician who was using and pulling strings, and then thankfully he gets literally handed his hat.
Yes, he does.
Which is why his name is irrelevance. It's not gone down in history.
Yeah. Just a boring, bland man. It was nice to see Downey doing a real performance.
Yes.
It was nice to see him not doing the Tony Stark thing,
right.
Which he obviously does very well, but like the jokes, the attitude or whatever, like he's playing an older gentleman. So they aged him up a little bit.
And I thought he did. He was, for me, I was like, oh, it's so good to see him. And
that's great.
It's like I saw Buddy after a long time.
Iron Man, there he is. What did you think about Damon?
He was okay. It was really nice to see
Damon performance.
Josh Hartnett.
Back.
He had
back yes.
He was my teenage crush. One of my teenage.
Oh, okay. Crushes. So, did you go see The Faculty?
No, but I watched Pearl Harbor.
Oh, okay.
And there was one, I remember, I was like, oh my God, Josh Hartnett.
You watched Pearl Harbor, but you're giving this movie shit? Jesus.
I didn't like Pearl Harbor either.
Okay.
So.
Good.
I remember because we were also studying that time in history at that time, because I was in school, I think. And we were learning about World War II and the historical, what was happening. So I remember we were studying it in school, and I watched this movie and I was like, are you guys that also elicited, I remember some responses. I don't remember exactly what they were.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember I was quite torn about the propaganda of the American propaganda of it all.
Yeah.
Of course.
See that I believe that definitely was it felt like a glorification, if I remember that correctly. That's American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Americans, we love to toot our own horn.
That's it. It was definitely American suffering is much more important than anybody else's, clearly. But,
I mean, because the rest of Europe had been going through this war for how long before we entered it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we did have a 3-hour movie that we had to contain, slightly put some parameters around, but I understand, points all taken. Okay. So Oppenheimer, maybe check it out. Maybe not. Maybe it should exist. Maybe not. This is the glory of our international panel of experts.
That's true.
We get different viewpoints and perspectives, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it some more soon to come.
Yay.
So I have one more movie I want to talk about real quick. Do you guys have any other business that you would like to discuss of the summer vacation? I mean, have you guys seen anything else that has been wildly compelling that people of today?
There's one movie y'all shouldn't watch, which is this new movie that just released to Netflix called Heart to Stone, featuring Gal Gadot.
Oh, I heard it was shit.
So bad.
Okay,
so that's a shouldn't watch. Okay.
It's a shouldn't watch. She's not even acting. She's just speaking her lines.
What is
zero emotion? Doing? I don't know.
For fuck's sake. I'm I know nothing of her. She's a beautiful woman. Right. She's Wonder Woman. That first Wonder Woman movie is awesome. That's all I know.
Yeah, I don't know her.
There's no identity. Else. There's no direction. She's just showing up. Come on, gal, you can do this. I don't think she is bad. There are times when she has been bad. Wonder Woman 84, she was literally it was a poor performance.
Yeah, even this one was very bad.
But I've seen her be good too. So whatever you did there, do that is what I would recommend. That's
fair recommendation.
Yep. Thanks. Now, Catherine, you are sort of like our art house film critic. I don't know if you know this, but you tend to see artsier movies than the rest of us, I think.
Okay.
Have you seen anything this couple months that's maybe under the radar, maybe a little less headline?
I think the last thing I saw that I absolutely loved was actually an Icelandic film called Driving Mum.
Oh, okay.
It's black and white and it's brilliant. I can't say enough about it. Everybody go see it. It's fabulous.
Okay. Bioparadis?
It was Bioparadis, but I think, I don't know, if you have Ruve, I think you can possibly get it on something there, whether you can rent it. There is a Bioparadis channel on Ruve. If you have the TV box.
I know that. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know how you'd get it outside of Iceland, whether you find it anywhere. But it's it's a tragic comedy.
It would have to be with that type of title, right?
Yeah, so it kind of I mean, I can give you a vague overview. Like,
please.
It's okay. So it starts on a farm, literally middle of nowhere, Iceland. You know, can be, you know, if you're out in the countryside, basically, this is how people live. I mean, these people get their supplies. Someone comes in by boat just to their farm, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's a guy, it's a mother and a son. And, you know, there's not really a lot going on. And then one day his mother dies. So he decides that the best thing to do, they don't have a phone, they don't have any radios. He can't like say, hey, this has happened. I mean, they are cut off. So effectively, like, dresses his mum up in like her best gear. He even puts makeup on her, even though he's got no concept of really how to do that. So it's kind of like a clown face on this dead woman. Yeah. Puts her in the back of the car, like sitting there, and then drives her, you know, to civilization to basically be like, yeah, my mum's dead. But during this journey, this then becomes a life journey effectively for him. The life he has not lived to date because he's been on this farm. He has all of these adventures, and yeah, it's quite a spectacular end. I can't really, it's very funny. It's very tragic. And it's quite beautiful.
Lovely. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Driving Mum.
Interesting premise.
Driving Mum.
Okay. There you go, listener. That's exotic Icelandic cinema input for you to enjoy. Icelanders, they can put a film together. Yeah. You know, like once a year at least. Like, I mean, they know what they're doing. So, like, this has never been the case of the show before, but let's platform Iceland as a filmmaking hotspot. All right. Check out some of our stories.
At least a popular location for filming. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Certainly picture.
You know, I was in the UK recently, and almost everything that like I put on to watch with my mum and dad, there was something in there about Iceland. And my mum actually turned around and went, bloody Iceland, I'm sick of it.
Well, we're very hot right now. We're very topical over here. Fresh volcanoes and earthquakes and whatnot. Who's not talking about Iceland?
It's dried up a little bit, hasn't it?
Well, it has, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so.
Not even smoking anymore.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to mention, well, two things. Number one, Matthew Broderick reminds me, I'm just about done with watching No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence, which is a very funny sex comedy. I think it's a simple movie. I won't get too into it or whatever, but just know that like Jennifer Lawrence, I think should at least be nominated for Best Actor award or win. And it'll never happen because this is a sex comedy, but she is awesome. And she is absolutely, I hate to use the word almost because of the cliche, but fearless.
Okay.
She's doing shit. Like I tip my hat to her. It's really, she's great. That's all I would say. And the movie's a lot of fun. And that's a recommend too. But the big one that I wanted to talk about last night, I had an amazing evening with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Before you all Catherine, wake up. I'm sorry. Before you all shut it down, I know that this is not the audience. Well, Shrishma, you're the audience.
I would never shut it down.
Yeah, you would like this stuff. And I like it too. Spidey's never been my guy. I think I've talked about it. Right. Sure, I'm a Batman guy. Pretty clear cut. Spider-Man, a little boring. But these movies, the Spider-Verse movies, this is what I'm looking for.
Right.
Like this is
really good production as well.
Oh, Shrishma, we talked about it on our Mission to Cartoon on Wookiee of the Year, our other podcast that we do. Guys, go check it out. I have a very love-hate relationship with cartoons, especially cartoons for grown-ups. They need to have a particular visual aesthetic, or like tick some boxes for me to really enjoy it. And this movie, these two movies, are so visually kinetic and compelling.
Yeah, they're almost like comic books come to life.
It's as close as you can get.
Right.
It's really incredible.
Right.
Catherine, I know this is not your genre at all, but I would say like maybe throw it on sometime and turn the sound off and just fucking look at it, because there are times like extraordinary moments where like there's like a beautiful scene in this film last night towards the end where two characters are interacting and they finally, if there's an issue I have with these movies, it's that it's almost too much. It's like, it's relentless, but then they manage to slow it down because they're smart storytellers and let these characters have moments together and be people. And when they do this, like in the background, I swear to you, if it's like Kandinsky's animated in the background behind these characters as they're talking, it was so hypnotic visually, and like beautiful, like yes, visually compelling. They're just doing all the things I've always wanted to see in a visual sense. And the animation is at a point where it is not distracting. It's actually enjoyable to watch. I don't see them as cartoons or even caricatures in any way. They're just like the voice performances are just spot on. And the way they are brought to life in this medium, I mean, it's really extraordinary. The first one won the Oscar for Best Animated Picture, which I was happy to see. And this one should do the same thing. I mean, it's really like a sight to behold.
As I told you, I haven't had a chance to watch Across the Universe yet.
Yeah.
But I started today, like rewatching Into the Spider-Verse. I'm so excited to go home and watch the second one tonight.
Indian Spider-Man, Shrishma. I was telling her earlier today, this dude is the star of the show. He will have his own spin-off something before it's all done, mark my words. But Indian Spider-Man in the Mubatan dimension is the best thing that's happened for me this year in the cinema. He's so funny. He's such a funny character and looks awesome too. Like a great design.
Okay.
So we talk about remakes sometimes, and there are these sort of forbidden properties. Everything's been remade except for a handful of forbidden properties that haven't been touched yet. So Back to the Future is one of these. I think Harry Potter qualifies as well, but they will be remade eventually.
Yeah, they're remaking Harry Potter.
Are they?
There is now a series.
Oh, fantastic.
They've already cast
no shit.
Casted as well.
Breaking news on this program. Look at you.
Who did they cast as Dumbledore? This was an interesting choice.
I hope it's an ancient alcoholic British actor of stage and screen who will die before they get past episode 2. Okay, while Shrishma looks this up, I'm going to continue to gush about the idea. I love it. I think, those movies are great. All the people are in them are great, but also this property is bigger than that, and they should be redoing it, or at least like spinning it out away from poor Daniel Radcliffe's face. But also, I feel like this Spider-Verse style of animation would be ideal for a Potter or a Back to the Future, something that has a lot of inherent wild and compelling visuals to it. This is a good way to do it. You don't have to necessarily recast or worry about like, how do you find another Michael J. Fox or whatever the deal is. This would be a good way to do it. Is just animate those guys. It's nice to talk with you guys. It's nice to check in. We will let you, listener. It's nice to check in with you as well. I'm sure you've been talking to us the entire time. We can't hear you. That's not how podcasts work. But we will keep you aware of when we will be returning and what the show is going to look like, and who knows. But we appreciate you spending this time with us. And gang, enjoy the rest of your vacay. Talk to you on the flip side. Is that a thing?
It is.
Okay. Well, let's do that.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.